we are going to talk about SEO for technical articles here. Um, Essentially, I think that this is a very essential topic that many people overlook. But first, let's talk about myself first. I am Denis. I work for a company called Couchbase, which is a NoSQL database. I have been working as a software developer for 15 years. I'm mostly a NoSQL and Java specialist. SEO is not usually a topic that I talk about. I mostly use SEO. And the reason why I'm talking about SEO today is because I actually had an SEO startup in the past. And that's pretty much where my whole knowledge of SEO comes from. So before we start, I would like to start with I have just one rule, which is don't use those techniques here against my articles. So if we ever are writing about the same stuff and see, oh, there is already a good article, there's already wrote an article about this topic, please write about something else, because if done right, you can actually outrank pretty much every single content out there. So, one of the things that I think that are important when you writing a content is to understand what you expect from this article, right? It might sound like a dumb question, but at first, I do think that this is it is a question that should be asked, because over the years, I noticed that some people want to write an article when they actually want to just talk about. They want to write news, and news is a different branch of SEO. Or some other people just want to send their message, right? So they don't really care deep down. They don't really care about how many people will read the article. They just want to discuss some specific topic or find their tribe. But for me, naturally, the word that I've been working on, I really care about readers. That's when I'm writing something, I want to maximize how many people will read my article. Just to give you guys here an example, this is one article that I wrote in the past. It's actually divided into two parts. And you can see that, okay, we have some broken analytics here. This print screen is actually from early this year, so January. Now we have much more traffic, much more number of views on this page. But you can see that we have roughly 200,000 page views. And if we do some quick math and we multiply the number of views, let's say 106,000, right? And multiply the number of views versus the average time on page, we will end up with something like 206,000 minutes that people spent reading this article. If we do some quick maths, again, we can actually say that, okay, this article is as good as more than 200 talks. That's how powerful writing content is, right? And since I wrote this article 2 years ago already, it was mentioned in a few talks, in some other people that I never met, so they mentioned this talk. Some other people that I met in the booth, they mentioned that, oh yeah, they have heard about Couchbase because of those. They read some article about the specific topic that I wrote in our blog. And even surprisingly, some people even come to the meetups where I usually speak to ask questions about this specific topic. So this is just a few examples of how powerful blogging actually is. And I mean, it kind of blows my mind as well when I see this kind of things happening. I know that we are living in strange times, and we won't be able to travel to conference and speaking with people in the booth for at least for a few months, I would say. But the point that I'm making here is that we can make a great impact by just blogging, guys. That's really powerful. And of course, SEO is just it is an important part of that. One of the problems here with SEO is when we talk about SEO, people usually still have in the back of their minds this SEO from the early 2010. Back then, SEO was a very technical topic. So back when I started my startup on this area, most of the things we were doing was friendly URLs, meta tags, using the Ford proper Ford protocols, some small growth hacks, and we used to do things that are even considered black hat today, but they were not back then. So that's how SEO was in 2010. If we fast forward to 2020, well, Google got far smarter now. Some experts said that Google should use something around 400 different signals to rank your page. So they have like more than 400 items that they check to rank your page. This is just a graph from Moz. So Moz is, some other companies are kind of a common thing to try to reverse engineering some of the Google algorithms to understand how the weight is distributed. And one thing that I noticed since I started was that in every single Google update, because Google updates the content, the algorithm every 4 months, let's say, in every single Google update, one thing that was clear was that, hey, we want to make good content rank higher. And that's why we actually see this mantra called this content is king mantra being repeated over and over in the internet. Because now, yes, there is some technical stuff that still matter, but if you write a good content, it will probably rank really well. However, the natural question is, okay, how do I write a good content that also ranks well? And well, if I have to give just one tip for you guys, is to spend 20% of your time on keyword research. That's what I usually do. If I have 5 days to write an article, I will spend 1 day just doing keyword research. And quite often, the right keywords for your article are not the obvious ones. So, for instance, Couchbase is a NoSQL database. We also had support for full text search. We also had support for transactions. And potentially, when I'm writing an article, that's not the keywords I'm going to focus on. You have the gold mine is on the long tail. And luckily, we work in the IT field, most of us, of course, and the IT field has plenty of keywords, and that's exactly what you should focus on. Like, go after the long tail keywords, because those are the quick wins, right? You can of course rank as the first result to NoSQL database, right, or DevOps or all the sort of things, but it will cost you a huge amount of money to do that. You have to spend a lot of time and money to rank as the first result for those main keywords, while you can easily rank for all those other long tail keywords and do as good as ranking as the first result for this specific keyword. However, when you are doing keyword research, you should not pick keyword researches. You should not pick your keyword based on guess. There are some specific metrics that you should use, and the most important of them is keyword volume, which is how many people search for these keywords monthly, right? And keyword difficulty, which is how hard it is to rank for those keywords. For instance, let's say I want to write an article about Pelé, the football player, right? Potentially, there's already a Wikipedia page talking about Pelé and all his career. So for me to write an article talking about Pelé and ranking higher than Wikipedia is very unlikely that I will be able to outrank Wikipedia. And that's exactly what keyword difficulty is. So if there is already good content out there that has tons of links that people like, and I want to focus on the same keyword, that will probably be very difficult for me to outrank this specific keyword. I highly recommend you using paid keyword researches for that. I can actually demo one of those to you guys. Let me come here to now that all my Chrome tabs were closed, I have to reopen here. So let's go to SEMrush. And demo SEMrush here, but because that's the one that I have access to, but it could be any other. So we can, let's say I want to write a blog post about microservices and Java, right? So let's say Java microservices. Let's say I can come here and say Java microservices. And then note that I'm only searching in the US database. So this is some estimations of how those keywords look like on US. And you see that, okay, those are the keywords that people usually search for. So I have microservice in Java, Java microservice framework, Java microservice tutorial, Java microservice example, and so on. So those are some related keywords that I could use on my content. Here is the volume. So naturally, microservice in Java is not Java microservice that I searched for. The most popular keyword is microservice in Java. So that's already a change that I would need to do on my blog. There is also keyword difficulty here, which is, okay, how hard it is to rank for this keyword. And what I need to find here is, okay, what is the keyword that has a high volume and a low keyword difficulty? So anything that is below 64 here, at least from the SEMrush point of view, should be reasonable. Should be easy enough to outrank. If you have something 90 or something else, that's already super difficult to outrank. So that's pretty much what I do before writing a content. I come here and I say, hey, Java microservice example GitHub. That seems to be a very difficult keyword to use. So I should not target this keyword on my content. And of course, once you click on this keyword, most of the those tools, they usually show you some stats. So what is the global volume? What is the some related keywords as well to this one? So let's see some other variations of this keyword. And that's pretty much what I do before writing a content. I think, guys, this is one of the most important steps. Before writing something, try to understand what people search for, how hard it is to rank for this content. Okay, I only have 25 minutes, so I can't make a good walkthrough this whole tool. But another important thing here as well is you have to target multiple keywords in the same article. In fact, that's even recommended. So for instance, let's go to an article of mine here called fuzzy string matching, right? So I wrote this article like just one day. It was super fast. And if you search here, my keyword, of course, is fuzzy matching, because I have here fuzzy matching the title. I also have like fuzzy matching here. But if you search in the content, you see something like fuzzy string matching. What else? We have some other variations here, like let's say fuzzy lookups and a lot of other variations of this keyword. In fact, Levestein distance is also another variation of this keyword. Edit distance is also another variation of this fuzzy matching. So that's exactly what I'm doing here. I have my target keyword, and then I use throughout my content, I use some variations of this keyword as well. Okay, let's go back here. Another very important, easy way to add more extra keywords in your article is to add code, because I am a developer, and quite often I search for blocks of content of code on Google just to understand, maybe I'm not sure how do I instantiate a new class, or what are the possibilities how can I use HTTP? Let's go back here. How do I use HTTP, this entity here, or this object? How do I manipulate this object? So quite often I would copy a block of code and just place it in Google and see what are the other codes or other tutorials that are using this specific topic, this specific block, so I can understand how they are using it. And one advantage here is that, okay, although GitHub has already a lot of content there, so you can find, you can go on GitHub and find the same class, Google don't index GitHub very well. I think most of you have never seen GitHub class rank as the first result, right? Most of sometimes you see the GitHub homepage or of a project, because this is kind of relevant, but some of the internal classes never. So if you add code to your page, that's definitely help you to rank for other keywords as well. I have some examples, like I wrote some code in like 3 hours. I thought, okay, this could be a tutorial. I just literally almost copy and paste the code, some basic explanations, and boom, a solid number of views per month on Couchbase blog. I mean, we also talked about keywords, but I think it's essentially to talk about what a good content is. I think the most basic definition of what good content is it has to answer the user question. That's something you should always bear in mind. So if the user is searching for the specific keyword, you have to understand, okay, what he wants to accomplish here, and I want to make sure that this content answers the question that he is searching for. Another important thing that I noticed that a lot of people forget about is, if you want to be in the first result, your content should be as good as the other top 10, right? So if I come here and search for Java microservices, right? My content, in order to rank as the first result, should be as good as the other top 10 results. So what I usually do is, okay, I go through all the top 10 results, I read all the top 10 results, and I make sure that my content has nearly the same content. We cover the same stuff plus something else. And that's how I am sure that, okay, Google is already telling me here what he thinks that is relevant for this keyword. He's already telling me, when I search Java microservices, he tell me, hey, those are the top pages, more relevant pages for this specific keyword. And what I want to make sure when I write something is, hey, my content is as good or better than all those top 10 results. So, and that's something that people usually totally overlook. You also want to make sure that your content is shareable, so people want to share your content. And you also link to other related content as well. Back then, we used to think that, okay, linking to other pages will make you lose the juice of your page. That's not true. In fact, a good page will link to other related and trusted resources. And of course, a good content has also images and videos. And here comes something that I think that's super, super important. If you make videos, add the transcripts, because Google don't index the content of your video. So Google does index the title, the description, but it does not index the transcript. So if in the middle of the video you're talking about something really, really awesome, and someone is searching exactly about that on Google, your video won't appear on the result because you don't have transcript. Like, Google doesn't index the content, right? So what I usually do is, whenever I record a video, I know that this is painful, I know it takes some time, but whenever I record a video, I make sure that I add the whole transcript of the video, because that's not for the user, that's for Google to understand what the content of the page is about, right? And that's really, really powerful. I have seen, like, okay, videos having a huge improvement just because we in a huge increase in traffic just because we added transcript for the videos. Other common mistakes here is I see that other people like to add, some people like to add catchy titles. So for instance, they want to write they give the article some smart title that doesn't use the keyword, and that's literally screw up with the relevance for Google. We also see other people that in the beginning of the article, they don't describe what this article is about. And Google usually have this content snippet here, which when you are seeing the result, it basically shows, okay, this is what this page is talking about. And if you don't have that, yeah, that might be not interesting for the user to click on. So having a good description, or if you have meta description, or the first paragraph is a very good description of what this page is about, that will help to increase your click-through rate. There is also no magic template. So I have seen people say, hey, do you have a template of a blog that I could follow that is SEO friendly? There's not such a thing as that. If someone tells you that, you can say, hey, Dennis told me that this doesn't exist. It's also important. I know that it's difficult, but it's also so important to ask other people inside the company to review your content. You can get amazing feedback on that and make your article even more powerful. It's also important to do keyword research before writing the content, right? Because sometimes if I want to write about Java and microservice, maybe when I do keyword research, I might find out that, okay, I should have written about distributed microservices in Java, or I don't know, some other topic, which is easier to rank and have a higher volume. And don't rely on SEO plugins as well. And fire and forget is one of the common mistakes. So congratulations, once you publish your article, you're just half done. There is still a lot of work you should be doing after you publish your blog. One thing that I see people doing is, okay, yeah, I publish my blog, so my company just share on Facebook and Twitter. That's not content distribution. What you should be doing instead is, hey, let's create a list of relevant places and communities where we should share this content and make people read them. Like, we want to find the readers, right? And then you let the authors to go there and manually share the article, because this gives it's a good thing when the author goes there and share the item instead of doing this via some automated tool. And of course, you have to revisit other related blog posts and link to your new article, because link building is something that matters for ranking an article well. And if you have budget, also please try to promote your content. I'm not saying for you to spend lots of money on a campaign for content, but spending like $50, $100 is already good enough to give this initial boost that the article needs. It's also worth to highlight that your article will take a while to rank well. This is some strategy of the from Google to avoid spammers, right? So Google doesn't allow you to rank, even if you wrote the best article in the world. It should still take a couple weeks for you to appear as a first result. So bear in mind that content is a long-term strategy. It will take you 3 to 6 months to see some good results. And articles are also living content, right? So you have to share in other places after a few months. You have to syndicate your content in third-party websites as well. You have to update your old products after your old blogs after a new product release. So, for instance, Couchbase didn't have in the past transactions. And in a lot of those contents, we make sure that, okay, we don't support transactions, and now we do so. We added support for transactions. So I have to revisit all those blogs and say, hey, guess what? And now Couchbase supports transactions, right? Because the people, the person landing this page, they don't know that, okay, we just launched this support for transactions now. So it's very important to update the old content as well. And it's okay if after 3 months your article is not ranking well. It's okay for you to also go there and update and try to change the keywords and change the article to see how it works, if you have any improvements. And of course, if you speak another language, make sure to always translate your content if possible. Just 2 slides left. I have some other few tips here. In the titles, make sure, sometimes it's cool to add numbers. So this is more a psychological pattern. People like to see numbers in titles. So 5 common mistakes for microservice common Microsoft mistakes, or how to speed up your performance in 20%. Are usually very good titles. People like numbers there, or dates. So for instance, this is the title of my talk, State of NoSQL in 2020. Make sure that your titles are not longer than 14 words. And it's also cool to add some call for action. So find, download, watch, and whatever you want the user to do. In the content, make sure to add videos as well inside your content, and add out fill the out attribute in an images, because it might help you to rank in the Google images as well, and people could come from they might look for images and land in your blog. Image sizes, usually page speed is a ranking factor as well. Make sure for that your articles is easy to share. So add the social share buttons, and of course leverage feature snippets on Google. So for instance, when you search for something and you see there's other cards in the left, so these cards can come from any result in the page. So even if you are in the 4th or 5th place, for instance, you can, if you have feature snippets, people can still see the snippet there, and they will click on your blog instead of clicking on the first result. This is a very I mean, I have a lot of stuff that I would like to talk about, but I probably far over the time that I have. So if you have any questions, I really appreciate. Feel free to reach me out. And yeah, thank you for having me.
All right, thank you. I know we've had some tech hiccups, so sorry about that. We do have a question, and any questions that we don't get answered, I'll direct you to answer them on Slack, so that we don't bleed too much into the rest of our agenda for today. But the first question we've got is from somebody out on YouTube. It says, are there any differences between a technical documentation and a technical article when it comes to these SEO recommendations? And how do you guys handle this at Couchbase?
So documentation has some... One of the problems with documentation in general is the version. So one thing that you should be aware of is quite often people can land in the wrong version of your documentation. And that's some of the... We had some problem in the past, for instance, where old pages on the documentation would rank higher than the actual, the current ones. And that's something they should be very careful, because that might be misleading. Some people might not notice that. And so we did some great work now to make sure that, okay, whenever you search for something in Couchbase, the first page that will appear is the most recent documentation. So I think that's the most important thing. Apart from that, I do think that documentation is, in general, should be as you should follow the same steps when you are writing an article or documentation. But the documentation has only this issue with versioning. In fact, one of the popular pages on Couchbase on our documentation is an article about NETP, which is nothing related to NoSQL. But the way we wrote the article was really good, and every time we even laugh about it, because it's one of the top pages on the documentation.
I think you mentioned Google uses 400 different signals or ways, and some of it sounds like it's a little bit magical and you're not really sure how it happens, so you laugh about it. I know I had a question. It seems like you've kind of got yourself in this mindset of thinking about target keywords and keyword variations. Can you talk a little bit about how you developed that skill? And was it from using tools like SEMrush and seeing the other words that it recommends?
So I think that in general, keyword research is something that you have to practice a little bit. But in general, what I usually do is when I'm about to write about, I have an idea of what should I write about. So I know, let's say in this fuzzy matching article, for instance, I would like to talk about Couchbase full text search. But what I usually try to do is, okay, let's try to find a keyword related to something that people are already searching for. I can give them the answer they are searching for, and then talk about what I want to talk about. So I'm not usually just talking about the product itself. I am, in some extent, contributing to creating some great content around a common question. And then if you are searching for fuzzy string matching, let's say, you are so interested in full text search, because those are very related, very common terms. And then it's okay for me to also talk about full text search after that, because that's one of the ways where full text search is used to do fuzzy strings matching. So in general, what I try to do is, okay, I have just a general idea of what I want to write about. I do some keyword research and say, okay, seems like people are more interested in those specific topics, and then I wrap up and I write my content around those main keywords that I have found. So that's why I think that it's important to do keyword research first before writing a content, because then it's too late, right? You just have to, if you do keyword research after your content is written, then you have to find some keyword that match exactly what your text is already talking about. When I do the opposite, I have much more flexibility.